Hello, my friends. Do me a favor. That mic's a little hot. Does that sound okay, or is that a little loud? Perfect. Raise your hand if there is a seat next to you, because these people want to stand against the wall. We're programmers. We can defragment, can we not? You know how to move the contiguous space. You have two choices. Either you move the entire row over, or you have these nice people do this. Excuse me, pardon me, excuse me, pardon me, pardon me, excuse me. Oh, sorry about your foot. Sorry, excuse me. See? This is how we do it everywhere, my friends. So now we've learned something really interesting. The people who have moved in to sit down are really interested in the talk, and the people on the wall are looking for a reason to leave. I'll be 3 or 4 slides in, and they'll say, I didn't like that meme. And then they're going to take off, and they're going to go and delete email or whatever they're doing. Thank you for doing that, friends. It makes it nicer for everyone else. My name is Scott Hanselman. You can go out and Google with Bing for Scott, and check me out. I've got a website that I've been managing now for almost 20 years. I want to make sure that everyone is paying attention right now. So here's a picture of Darth Vader riding a cat. There'll be regular checkups to make sure that you're paying attention during the rest of the talk. I'm super old. I've been programming now. This is my 30th year, so I was already doing it professionally when I was doing this, which is great because it's such a joy for me to meet a programmer who has been alive as long as I've been programming. And then I become old man who shakes fist at cloud. When I was a boy, we didn't have containers. I only had a Palm Pilot and it didn't have internet. I literally told a story a couple of days ago in Prague about the time that I drew a circle on a Palm Pilot without a math library. I thought it was the most amazing, most fascinating story that anyone had ever told anyone. And one of the young people just said, why didn't you just use the circle function? Completely missing the point. So I've been on the internet for a non-trivial amount of time, and I've written about a lot of stuff. I've developed somewhat of a reputation of being productive. I don't know if it's a myth or not, but it's a nice reputation if one is thought of as being somewhat productive. But most of the stuff that I write about is crap. I've written about being a phony, having imposter syndrome, which is something that I think we don't talk about enough in technology. There's so many people now with GitHub graphs that are all green, that every system is set to make us feel bad about not being productive. And we don't talk about it honestly with our coworkers, with our friends, with our family. We just feel sad and feel inadequate internally that we are somehow a phony. So I just come out and say that I'm a phony. I have no idea what I'm doing. And I've been largely coasting on charm for 30 years. If you can just own being a phony, you feel a lot better. I write about all kinds of things. I write about that. I've written about working from home as a remote worker. I even have a little light that tells my children that I'm working, and then they can ignore it, as you can see right there. I've written about teaching kids how to program. I even write about gardening, but specifically how programmers garden, which is sectioning things off by square foot and having an organized garden with little lines and strings because programmers like graph paper. I've written about building arcade machines from scratch, from older arcade machines. I even wrote a Windows Phone app that I'm not very proud of. I also wrote a game called Baby Smash for babies. Yay, Baby Smash! My baby's now 14. Which is a problem. He's going to be driving in a year, but Baby Smash is still out there. It's not about smashing babies. It's about, someone was like, Baby Smash? I'm not really sure how I feel about that. It's about smashing the keyboard, and then the babies get to learn their characters and things like that. It's open source, and it's up on GitHub. You can check it out. I've written a bunch of books that I'm not very proud of. I'm working on a book that haven't got done yet. It's called Relationship Hacks. It's about being in a mixed marriage where one is a normal person and one is a geek. So I'm working on that book. I've also got a podcast you should check out. This is the advertising portion of Depternity. listen to my podcast, I've done over 712 episodes. That is 350 hours of technical talk every Thursday for 14 years. I've got another podcast called This Developer's Life. I did one on pop culture called Ratchet and the Geek. I did a 2-hour documentary called Get Involved in Tech that you can get for free up on Pluralsight, even if you don't have a Pluralsight subscription. That's a lot of stuff. Why did Scott just tell us about all these things that he does? Because I must dance. I just enjoy it. None of these things are even my job. Like being here, literally not my job. I took a vacation day to hang out with you all because a lot of us did, in fact, the speakers take vacation days because we enjoy doing this. We are overflowing with enthusiasm for software and hardware and open source. It just makes us so happy. And I've worked in open source, for 20 years of the last 30, and I've worked at Microsoft now for 12 in open source. And when I went to Microsoft, everyone said I was a sellout. And it hurt my feelings. They're like, you're an open source person. Why are you going to go work for these people? And I didn't know what to do about this. I mean, I had to emotionally, to work through those feelings. Somehow, I was able to feel better about myself once I made that decision. But it hurt me. This is a picture of me before Microsoft. And here's a picture of me after Microsoft. Now, I'm going to give you some advice. There's a special word that we have in English that we invented, which is the word for someone who asks for advice but then does the opposite of what you say. Right? They're an asshole. Now, certainly the great thing about advice, and an important thing for you, the audience, for you, the young people, to know, is the great thing about advice is you don't have to take it. You can just take it and say, that advice is not for me. So just like everything from our last speaker all the way to Kevlin at the very beginning yesterday, these are all wonderful nuggets of advice, pieces of advice for you to put into your toolkit. Pick the ones that make you happy. I'm going to make a bunch of declarative statements. When people make declarative statements, they are most likely to be called a fool in retrospect. And that's fine. Take the things that I say that you like, use them, and the ones that you don't, discard them happily, because you're going to find a system that works for you. Now, there is an American actor named Paul Reiser who was on a famous TV show in America. It doesn't matter. And he started out by making a movie in the 80s called Diner. And this movie was very famous, but he was stuck writing this movie for a very long time, and he didn't understand how to get it going. So he went and he asked some advice of another very old, famous American actor who was on a show called Columbo, and he said, I need some advice. How do you write a movie script? And he says, you get some paper, you put it in a typewriter, you type fade in, and then keep typing. You would think that would not be really useful advice. I mean, that's effectively like a Nike, how do you start a marathon? Just do it. But people don't understand that so much of life, so much of productivity, so much of happiness, so much of coding, so much of everything is simply showing up. Put the piece of paper into the thing, you turn it, and you say, keep typing. Now, of course, it's 2020 almost. This is the last month of the decade, by the way. Enjoy that. A bit of nightmare fuel. And we're still thinking about carriage returns and line feeds, and I'm making a typewriter reference. I had another young person yesterday said, what's a carriage? Why is it returning? And why are we feeding it lines? So I would encourage you to turn to the 20-something next to you and talk to them about the top carriage of the typewriter and how Git and Windows and Mac still haven't got it together. But we're really just doing carriage returns, ting, ting, line feed. So let's talk about being productive and scaling yourself. I know that there's been a lot of really great talks. Some have been soft talks, some have been hard talks, but they've all had computer science at their heart. So how do you scale yourself? Well, here's a computer science fact. The less stuff that you do, the more of it you can do. In fact, if you do nothing, you can do it infinitely. Isn't that a great quote? I'm going to make that a quote. There you go. I just made that a quote. It's a famous quote now from a famous person. Here's a chart that shows if you do nothing, it scales. The throughput of nothing is infinite throughput. It's fantastic. So if you want to be productive, the best thing that you can do is as little as possible. Saying no is the most powerful thing that you can do. But it's overwhelming because the amount of information that the world has changed. There was a time when there was a finite amount of information. And now, RIP Google Reader, everything in my life is just a badge that says 1,000 plus. I've peeked over some of your shoulders, and some of you have like 30,000 emails on your iPhone, and it's just like the number doesn't even matter anymore. Doesn't that hurt you right here? Don't you feel that like burrowing into your brain? Like, I don't even look at the numbers anymore. Just delete all the email then. It doesn't matter. If it says 1,000 plus, you're never going to read it. When I was developing software in the 80s and 90s, there was no internet. There was these two books. And that was the sum total of all human information. You got the Old Testament, you got the New Testament, you got them right there. And if the information wasn't in those books and you're in your mom's basement, well, that's it. Those are the books that you have. But now you've got all these different things to look at, plus Google and Stack Overflow. And people largely agree that the information that they get is not valuable. Huge, huge amounts of information. And we have this information hanging in front of our faces, and we don't even have the words to explain it. There's a really great book called That Should Be a Word. Now, the Germans, they just make a really long sentence, put it together with no spaces, and they call that a word. So they would take this paragraph, remove all the spaces and punctuation, and just make it like, Schadenfreude, it would be a big long word. But she is saying that we're in dire need of a word for that email. You know that email, the one that's in your inbox, that's been there for months, and you really need to give it your full attention, but it's so important. You don't really have time to think about it now, so you just let it sit there for a while until it slowly moves down the screen, and then it's on page 2. And then eventually it isn't important at all. It just kind of like fades away. What is the word for that email? But we all have that email. I've been putting off answering that email for months now. I've got emails from March of 2018. I need to get to them because they're so very, very important. What are the danger signs that you're having trouble, that you might be in a situation? Well, you're going to start missing deadlines. You might feel like a failure and not want to talk about it. Your family might complain. But here's the number one. The number one thing that I see people doing, whether they be a project manager or a programmer, is they say, I'm going to work late. Just do a little work late to catch up. It's a busy time. It's a busy season. October, November, December, it's a very busy time. I'm just going to go to work at 8. I'll come home at 6, put the kids to bed, say hi to my partner. They go to sleep. Then I'm going to work from 10 p.m., check a little email until 2. And then wake up the next morning and then do it again. Just October, November, December, kind of that January, February, March, April, kind of like, just May, June, July, August, just kind of that September, October, just that kind of, it's a busy season. It's a busy time. I hope things will be better though. I hope that if I do this extra work, things will be okay. Hope is not a strategy. But you don't want to say anything to your boss because then your boss will know that you're a phony. Your boss will know that you don't know what you're doing, that you're overwhelmed. You're not in a healthy job or a healthy management structure where you can say, I need help. I need to drop some balls. I need to do less. People will tell you, well, Beyonce has the same number of hours in a day that you do. Well, she also has a glam squad and a management team and a bunch of people that she delegates to. I don't think that she's extra good at doing email. She probably doesn't even do email. So there's a couple of words that I want to parse. We may have heard these words from other speakers over the course of the day, so I'm using the opportunity of this talk, being the lock note that closes things out at the end, to double-click on some of the great ideas that have been presented over the last couple of days here. The first word that I'm going to want to hit is called effectiveness. Now, I do this talk all over the world, and I do it in different languages, and I've learned something, that even as a native English speaker, the difference between the word effectiveness, or to be effective, and the word efficient, or efficiency, is hard for an English speaker to describe. Tell me the difference between effective and efficient. So you go to Google Translate, because we all know that that's a wonderful resource, and it's totally accurate. Pick a bunch of different words, and we say, okay, so here's the word. I double-check this with a Latvian. That's effective Latvian. Cool, close enough, right? Good. So when you're being effective, You're doing right things. Like, you're an effective worker. Yeah, I'm setting targets. I'm heading towards a goal. I'm goal-oriented. That's effective. Excellent. Now, can I also be efficient? Let's look up what efficient in Latvian is. Oh, it's the same word. Turns out this is the case in many, many languages, where these two very different concepts pull back into the same word. And if you look at Russian, they've got a word for effective, and then they end up with just an acronym that describes a paragraph, that describes a PhD paper, that talks about the ratio of power over time, blah, 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 blah. And they just say capire, and they say, oh yeah, it's like efficiency. No, it's not. Like you don't have a word for that. It's okay. These are complicated concepts. Efficiency. Hello, how's it going? Paparazzi. It's constant. Just all over Europe. It's such a hassle. Efficiency is being process-oriented, okay? This is doing things in an economical way. Let's think about this in the context of a sprinter. Someone like Usain Bolt, fastest man alive. Very efficient runner. He picks a direction and he runs in that direction as fast as possible. So that would be efficient. Being ineffective would be picking the wrong direction, but still running really, really well. So we know that we can't go to Google Translate and solve these problems because it'll tell you that literally the words mean the same thing. So here's Hanselman's definition of these words. Being effective is doing right things, correct things. Efficiency is doing things right. See the difference? Pick a direction, effective. Do it well, efficient. Is this effective? Well, it depends on your perspective. He jumped the wrong way. Now, there's a lot of information coming in at us. We heard the word inbox in the last talk. When we say inbox, though, it's a conceptual inbox. I'm going to use the word inbox to not necessarily mean your literal email inbox. Your inbox is any piece of information that comes at you. Your inbox could be a piece of paper. It could be ballet tickets that are physical for next year. It could be a Slack notification. It could be the little red notification on your phone that you're ignoring, that you say doesn't stress you out, but it really does subconsciously stress you out because it is a reminder of your failure. This information, I'm not joking, subconsciously you know that those little red badges are there, and you need to declare email bankruptcy. But you don't want to go and do that, so you just sit on it forever. These things need to be triaged. Triage is a great word. I like the word triage. Now, the definition, if you pull it back into the French, means to sift, to sort, to separate, to sift. Sifting is like when you take sand and you sift it, and then the gold stays at the top and the sand comes out at the bottom. But triage has a very specific, very aggressive background. When we say the word triage, there's usually violence associated with it. I think about it in the terms of a battlefield or like the zombie apocalypse. This is a toe tag that you put on dead people here. There's zoom in on the toe tag. Imagine you're on the battlefield and you've got a bunch of people that are various levels of zombie, and you have to figure out, are you okay? Are you okay? Walking wounded. Get off my battlefield. Serious? Okay, we're going to take care of you. You're dead. We're going to put a toe tag on you. Get it done. Do it, drop it, delegate it, defer it. Very aggressive because it's a battlefield. We have things to do. We're not going to be like, how are you? Are you feeling okay? That leg, that looks a little rough. Can we fix that? No. Walking wounded, get off my battlefield. Triage, it means get it done. So when we take the concept of getting it done, and we look at David Allen, who we've invoked in previous talks, and some of his ideas in the getting it done philosophy, he had this thing called the threefold nature of work. There's three different kinds of work. There's work that you defined ahead of time. There's work that has appeared. Like, oh, surprise, here's some work. Interrupted, boom, work. But then there's a thing that we don't spend enough time doing. And we've heard from different practitioners the last few days that you should be doing this. You should be working on defining work. When was the last time that you made an appointment with yourself to actually sit down and figure out what the hell you're doing? Like you tend to do that between meetings or at night. You have these moments of panic. You're like, I don't know what I'm doing. Let me write it down. Okay, I feel kind of what's going on. But very rarely do we see people putting appointments on their calendar with themselves to just figure it out, to define the work, project planning for one's self. Defining work is as important as predefined work. Now, once we get a piece of work, once it comes into our inbox, into our life, we can do it. We heard about the 2-minute rule. Do it. If you can do it in 2 minutes, just do it. Make the call, send the text, delete the email, done. Then there's drop it. So powerful. We'll talk about that in a second. Just don't do it. Easiest thing you can do. Don't do it, boom, no work, no problem. You know how they always say, no pain, no gain. I say, no pain, no pain. It's been my exercise strategy for a while, you can tell. Then you can delegate it. This is a really hard thing. A lot of programmers are control freaks. We want to do things ourselves. So it's difficult to say, you do it. But at the same time, if you're building a team and you can't say, you do it, you're really saying, I don't trust you to do this because I have control issues. But scaling yourself is about not doing stuff, which means giving it to someone else, which means being a part of a team. And then there's, of course, deferring it. And deferring it is doing it later. Now, if we take David Allen, getting things done, and then we take the concept of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he had the Covey quadrants. And we overlay David Allen's ideas on top of Stephen Covey's, we can come up with an interesting chart, noticing that our y-axis here is importance. Important stuff is at the top. The x-axis is urgency, where really urgent stuff is in the upper left corner there. So an example of urgent and important would be house is on fire. And not urgent nor important would be anything on Twitter. Right? Very rarely will you see something on Twitter that would cause you to grab your bags, your family, and escape your home. Therefore, nothing on Twitter is interesting, useful, or helpful, or in any way makes you money. So, do it now, urgent and important. If it is not urgent, but it is still important, that's where your power is. That's the quadrant where you want to spend some time. You want to be sitting there thinking about important stuff that isn't currently on fire. That's preparation. That's project work. Don't be on Twitter. Don't be on social media. This is a picture of a rat with a electrode into the brain of the pleasure center of the brain. And if the rat just pulls on that little bar, it will refresh the serotonin in the brain, and it will give a sense of well-being to the rat. It'll make the rat feel good about itself. It'll improve the rat's self-esteem. It just has to pull to refresh. It gets that electrical stimulator, and it feels good about itself. Just pull to refresh, and it says, I'm okay. Pull to refresh, things are going to be all right. People care about me. I got more likes. Pull to refresh. Do you remember the story about Jesus when there was only one set of footprints? That's when he unfollowed you on Twitter because there's too much happening in your Twitter. Jesus unfollowed you. Now, every good system, every programming system, the internet itself, TCP/IP, were all set up to be communication fault tolerant. You can drop packets and still get your work done. Skype would be a perfect example of that, right? Any cell phone call ever. I have a pocket supercomputer and I can't make a phone call without, and then what? I hear you. But you still understood what I said, and I dropped half the packets. Sometimes dropping the ball is the right answer, unless you are a juggler of chainsaws, and then don't drop the ball. Now, just to make sure that you're paying attention, here is a man surfboarding on a crocodile in space in a golden lame outfit. I don't know what movie that is, but I want to see it. Now, remember that thing I was talking about with those little red numbers on your email telling you how many you have? In the States, we have this thing called a TiVo, T-I-V-O. It's a digital video recorder. Before, after VCRs, we get these digital things, and before Netflix, you would say the television show I want to watch is on Thursdays at 8. And in the old days, for the young people, we would actually go to the TV at 8 on Thursday, and we would watch the thing. But then we got this digital video recorder that would record it on a hard drive, and we just say, I'm going to see, Criminal Minds or Law and Order, and I would record the show. And then I have this disk drive filled with it. You might use Kodi or torrents or whatever, but suddenly what was a family appointment where we had a thing, we would sit down, we'd watch TV, became this ever-growing queue, this infinite list of shows that I will never watch. What was originally, I thought, a gift from the technology gods. You don't have to be there on Thursday at 8. You can watch it whenever. There's 5 seasons of The Wire that I will never see, but I can feel it here. The personal failure. You haven't watched The Good Place? Oh my God, you have to watch The Wire and Watchmen and all these other shows you've never heard of. And Lost, oh my God, there's only 25 seasons of Lost. You have to watch Lost. And I would actually have conversations with my partner, and I would say, all right, listen, there's like 9 episodes. Let's just put the kids to bed early. You'll call in sick, and we'll just binge. We'll just watch. We'll just get it done. There will always be more television to watch. The psychic weight of the television presses here, the shows that I want to see, the movies I want to see. How can I solve that? How can I get that away from my brain? I just let it go. I thought about what was important. And the way that I think about what's important is with my buddy, J.D. Meyer at gettingresults.com, calls the rule of 3. Everybody's got lists. In the old days, I just had a file called to-do.txt. Other people had a .plan file. Now you all put it in mind maps and sync it to the cloud and all that kind of stuff. But know this, we can't keep really more than 2 or 3 things in our brains at a time. So why not keep 3? 3 things that you could do today or tomorrow or Monday that would make you feel good, that would make you feel accomplished. Because what happens now is you go to work, you check your email, you time travel to 2 in the afternoon, you don't know how it happened, you have an awkward lunch at your desk, somewhere around 3:30 you start feeling yourself and you're like, yeah, I gotta go home now. And then you do it all again, and you wonder why you suck. And you don't talk to your friends or your family about it. You just feel like a failure, and then you do it again. And then there's the nervous laughter, because it's funny because it's true. So let's be honest with ourselves. I want you to make a plan for 3 things you can do on Monday. I want you to try to get 2 of them done before noon. And which 3 things should you pick? Well, this is up to you. You could pick the most urgent things. You could pick the things that are the most on fire. But since we're just getting started on this technique, what I want you to do is I want you to make the choice to pick things that will make you feel accomplished. That you'll go, man, I freaking did that thing at work, set up that bill, I got the CI/CD working, tests are passing, and I did it before noon. How awesome am I? What you do is you roll into work on Monday with a vision, with a plan. 3 things a day, 3 things for the week, 3 things for the month, 3 things for the year, of widening scope. Then on Friday, you reflect on the week. Did I get those things done? If you didn't, why not? Then you forgive yourself. Because every day, every new day is a day that you can turn it around. You can feel bad. If you want to feel bad, you want to beat yourself up, you can feel bad. But you can also do a little tip that my mom gave me. She said, you should feel horrible. This is my mom. You should feel you screwed up and you suck and you need to feel awful about that for 15 minutes. And she shortened that speech to, you feel bad? Set a timer. Seriously, she says, feel awful. Squish it all into 15 minutes, and then at the end of that, you get over it and you do the next thing. Forgive yourself on Friday, and then on Monday, you try again, and you pick 3 things, and you make those things awesome. Now, a lot of people think, well, I need to be busy. You got to be busy, busy. I'm so busy. We all have these bosses. Oh, I'm too busy to have lunch with you. Or they have these people that we look up to. I'm far too busy to have coffee. Roy, I'm sorry. Busy. People who are busy are often intellectually lazy because it's indiscriminate action. It's exciting to be busy. It's exciting to delete email and, I got a very important text. Hang on. The human that's in front of me is not as important as this very important text. I'm very busy. Lazy thinking and indiscriminate action. People who have time for important things make that time. If you don't have enough time, you make time by doing less. Sometimes I'll hang out with my friends and they complain about how they have nothing to have. I've got all these things I got to do. Oh, my life. Why are you here? Why are you hanging out? And then there's always that one friend who's not there. And then a year later, they'll pop up and they will have done something amazing. Some open source project, some book, some pamphlet, some website. And I'll be like, wow, that's where you were. Yeah, it turns out that being creative is the opposite of hanging out. How amazing is that? They were being intentional. They were doing deliberate practice. They knew that doing the thing, making the thing, whatever it was that fed their spirit, was more important than FOMO. Do you know what FOMO is? Fear of missing out. We were taught FOMO in school. You didn't know it, but you were taught this. In kind of high school, before university, FOMO is when you're hanging out with your friends and you really need to go home and study. But you have a fear of missing out because you're going to go home and study and then the next day they're going to be like, oh, dude, or whatever they say in your part of Europe, dude, after you left, the ghost of Prince was there and they did like a whole concert. It was amazing. And you stick around hoping that this will be the time that will happen, and it never happens. Do you know about the marshmallow test? It's a test that they give to little kids, 4 years old, 5 years old. Psychological test to see who is more likely to succeed. They take a little 4-year-old or 5-year-old, and they put them in a room, and they say, hello, how are you? And they put a marshmallow, like a sweetie, on the table. And they say, I'm gonna go. If you can just watch my marshmallow, don't eat it, please. And then when I get back in 5 minutes, you can have 2 marshmallows. But if you eat it, then I'm not going to give you the other marshmallow. And then they leave. And then they have the video, and the kids just sit there, and they stare at the marshmallow, and they're just like... And then they follow up with these kids 20 years later. And the kids that don't eat the marshmallow and get 2 afterwards end up doing better because they have some willpower. And the tale of this particular thing is kind of bad because it implies that we're born that way. That willpower is a thing that we either have or we don't. And I don't think that that's fair. It implies that at 4, I can tell you if you're going to be successful at 24. What I would propose is that you could teach the kids that. It's a muscle. We could teach the 4-year-old by doing 30 seconds and then a minute and working up to the point where everyone can build up their willpower well. But unfortunately, we have things poking at us, things that are keeping us from going to bed and getting a good night's sleep. Anybody ever argue with strangers on the internet? Did anyone get a check afterwards? Maybe pay off their house or get a promotion from arguing with a stranger on the internet? No? Yeah, that's what I thought. Let's talk about being efficient. I got all these things in my life. Here's some homework. This is a good thing to take a photograph of. This is your homework. I want you to take all of the things that come into your life. Your list will be different than my list. And I want you to sort them. Valuable, not valuable. High signal, high noise. Think about the things. Yours might be GitHub issues, Jira tickets, whatever. Doesn't matter. Which of these can be dropped? Are the noisy ones stressful? Why are they noisy? Do they have value to you? Why do you insist on doing that? People bugging you on Twitter? People bugging you on it? Quit Twitter. Mute those people. Someone calling you and bothering you? Don't answer the phone. Block them. Block easy, block often. Why would you let a stranger why would you let someone who doesn't love you ruin your day? This is my list. I work with community, so phone calls, and by phone I mean phone, FaceTime, WhatsApp, audio, Skype, anything in face-to-face. I do this a lot. I talk to people. Your list will be different. Work email, I'll talk about how I chop those up. And then my TiVo, my television, is low. Now, the reason that you sort this is because your life has moments of high stress and moments of low stress. So what you need to do is decide where you're going to cut and every day is different. The reason that we're not successful is that we don't make adjustments. You might be really stressed on Tuesday, but you still insist on doing your Twitter and doing your TV and doing all your personal email. But if you're in a busy time, I'm in a busy time right now. I've done 11 talks in 4 countries in 4 days. I'm not doing any personal email. I'm not doing any of these things because I'm focused. Now, I'll do them later, so the water level will go up and then the water level will go down. And what I'm doing is being intentional about it. To be clear, I like television. I'm not saying don't do the things you like, but I'm saying be conscious, deliberate, and intentional about the things that are providing you value at the moment and the things that will provide you value later. And then build systems. Build up success systems to make this easier. Now, we've all seen really exquisite and complicated email rules that people build, and they sort their email, and they say, look at my system, I've got 99 folders that I never really open and look at. I have one email rule. Here's the rule. Stuff that goes to me goes in the inbox. Stuff that's CC'd goes in an inbox CC'd, because it's FYI. Now, for the young people who've never seen carbon paper, CC means carbon copy. You go and look on Wikipedia what carbon paper is. But CRLF, right? Well, by doing that, I took 240 emails and I put 2/3 of them in a separate inbox. Now, you might say, well, hang on, there's still 240 emails. Sure, but I don't read inbox CC every day. I only look at it a couple times a week. That cut my email down by 2/3, didn't change my job, changed my stress level, my feelings, my perceived stress, required minimal effort, and I've only dropped a few balls. Now, you might say, well, sometimes people at work will CC me on stuff, and then I'm not going to see it then. Yeah, you probably won't, and it probably won't get done, and that will happen once. And then you'll train that person, you'll teach that person, yeah, CC me on stuff, that's FYI, for your information, and then to me on other stuff. And they'll go, oh, okay, cool. Won't take long. You teach people how to treat you. Now, I work in community, so I do a lot of external stuff. I have a third inbox. I lied. That one is for external email. Notice that it's empty, because people inside Microsoft are less important to me as people outside Microsoft. I've answered all of those emails. My community is more important than my internal people, so those are answered. And then I have a search folder for my bosses. I say 3 up, my boss's boss, her boss's boss, 3 up. And then I have big-ass mail because I only have so much space, so I delete like big attachments and stuff. And plus, it's funny to have ass in your email. Here's some homework for you. I want you to try this on Monday. Don't check email in the morning. You get to work, don't check email. Instead, think about your rule of 3 and do the thing that you want to do. And what's going to happen is it's going to feel weird. Now, if your job is email deleter, like if that's your LinkedIn profile, deletes email, right? Project manager. What are you doing? I delete email mostly. That's fine. Then delete your email. But for the most part, you are not email deleters. You don't look like an email deleting crowd. What'll happen though is you're not going to waste 90 minutes or 2 hours or, I don't know, 5 hours messing around on email. You're going to be very awkward. You're like, well, I guess I actually have to work right now. And then you're going to get that done, and you're going to feel so good by 10:30 or 11. You're going to get that work done. You're going to go to lunch having already achieved. And the people you go to lunch with are going to be like, I don't know where the time goes. And you figured it out. You know where the time goes. It goes into email. Another crappy thing about email, if you respond, they will respond to you. Email only makes more email. So when you send that email, you need to ask yourself, do you really want to hear from these people again? Don't put energy into things you don't want more of. Now, you're a beautiful crowd. You're a lovely bunch of people, but you type a lot, and you need to conserve your keystrokes. Here's a little sobering fact. You ready for this? You have a finite number of keystrokes left in your hands before you die. You're not going to get any more keystrokes. You think you're going to get faster? Let me tell you, as an old person, you will get slower. I made a website for you. You can go and check it out. It's called keysleft.com. You can go to keys left, you put in your age and your words per minute, and it will tell you how many keys you have left. And the great part about it, with the power of JavaScript, the number of keystrokes you have left will go down as you look at the page. But I will also, for you, I will also calculate how many computer programs you have left, how many books you could write. I will also tell you how many love letters that you could write and how many emails to your boss. You have this many keystrokes. Who are you going to give them to? Now, you're lovely people. Let's say one of you decides to email me a great question afterwards. And you go, hey, Scott, great talk. Here's a question. And I'm like, oh, I have never heard that question. That was a freaking awesome question. But I don't know you. Am I going to give you the gift of my keystrokes? Some internet rando. Hey, Scott, great talk, super awesome. Here's a question. I give you 5,000 keystrokes, 5-6 paragraphs. I write a whole blog post. And then you're like, thanks. Or even worse, you're young and you go THXKK or whatever. Like, I don't even know what KK means. It's like okay, but it's more cash. I'm like, you didn't even give me the full thanks with an exclamation point. It was just like thanks with a full stop. Like, what is that? So then my keystrokes are in the void, and I'm never going to get them back again. But you gave me a gift. You gave me a great freaking question. I should do something with that gift. So I'm going to put that gift anywhere with a URL. Literally anywhere. SharePoint, God help me. My blog, Medium, Facebook, anywhere that has a URL. And then I will say, thank you for that great question. I wrote a blog post, boom. And then you'll say, well, no one reads my blog. You only need a second person to read your blog. And you've doubled your keystrokes. If 10 people, I only have 10 people read my blog. Are you kidding me? You could multiply your keystrokes by 10? Well, I don't have a lot of time in the day. You're writing a lot of email? Maybe you should turn those emails into documentation, markdown files, OneNotes, SharePoints, literally anything but email, and then link those. Do that for 20 years, and you will be a moderately successful technology blogger and be able to speak at mid-sized conferences in small countries in Europe. How are you so productive, Scott? I never answer your emails. Now, there's lots of sources out there. There's lots of physical stuff also. What you need to do is find a trusted source for stuff and put it there. Everyone's got the drawer of USB cables and stuff, right? The trick is, do you have one drawer? Or if someone says find a USB cable, do you have to go and say, let me check the 7 drawers of USB cables? For everything in your life, have a trusted place, one place to put that. Pick a location for each medium. Keep it open and updated all the time. Additionally, you spend so much time talking about Scrum and practice and stuff, but how many people actually practice Scrum in their own lives? It always seems like it's the project managers at work that are the most stressed out. Here's a picture of Pee Wee Herman saving some snakes from a fire. It's one of our great American philosophers, if you don't know who that is. Now, there's a thing called the Pomodoro technique. Where are my Pomodoro people at? Pomodoro people? Good. Every row has a Pomodoro person, so you can find those people and ask them what it is. It's the idea of a unit of time. It's 25 minutes. It's not a half an hour. It's not 60 minutes. It's 25 minutes. That's because you need 5 minutes to pee at the end. And when someone says, hey, can you do this for me? And you look at it and you go, that's about 2 hours. It's actually about 4 Pomodoros. And you start to think about things in terms of a Pomodoro. But here's your challenge, though. What you have to do is focus on that thing. You have to do the thing, one thing, for 25 minutes. Now, often we get caught up in the flow. We've heard that word a lot at the conference, flow. Stay in the flow, get in your flow. You want to stay in your flow, but you would be surprised how challenging it is, especially with tasks that are distasteful, things that you don't want to do, to stay focused for 25 minutes. But the great thing about 25 minutes is that it is finite. It will be over. But you're also going to interrupt yourself. You're going to interrupt yourself internally, and you're going to get interrupted externally. The objective is to be aware of these interruptions. You might be just doing something and then somehow you alt-tab and you're like, I don't know how I got here. Suddenly, I'm really good at solitaire. You're supposed to be coding. What is happening? This is totally not what you need to be doing right now. And then there's also external interruptions. External interruptions, they can be like, we're going to need you to work late this week. Is that okay? And then your boss comes to you. You have to deal with these interruptions. Acknowledge them, analyze them, and say, look, I consistently find myself on Reddit when I should be coding. Now, you need to acknowledge that. That's a failing. That's a thing. Is it good or is it bad? Do you feel bad about yourself doing that? Don't do that. Maybe instead of doing it twice in 25 minutes, try doing it once. It's a muscle. It's an exercise. It's not the marshmallow test where they declare that you don't have willpower at 4 and you'll never be successful. It is about you being deliberately conscious of the thing that you did that you didn't like. You measured it. You didn't like it. You decided. No judgment from outside. Yeah, I keep coding and I try to code for half an hour and then somehow I'm on Reddit or I'm on Twitter or I'm on whatever. I'm going to try it again for another 25 minutes, and I'm going to see if I can interrupt myself once, or maybe not at all. And then I'm going to give myself, hey, look, I did it, 25 minutes. And then I'll do it again. Reminding yourself that everything that's important will find its way to you. Oftentimes we'll go over there because it's FOMO. It's internet FOMO. I might have mentions. I might have issues. There might be something going on. Do you think that Usain Bolt, while sprinting, gets a little vibration on his Apple Watch and he checks it out? No, he's focused. He's running that way. His Pomodoro is 100 meters. Yours is 25 minutes. And you'll feel like this. Now, a lot of people think, I'm a really good multitasker. I like to multitask. I multitask a lot. This person says that the worst app on my iPhone is this thing called Phone. We have to speak synchronously to other humans. Here's the deal, though. The optimal number of threads in any system is 1. We are not multitaskers. There is no multitasking. Here is a video of some poor multitasking.
He's just chilling. What if you say? That's crazy, dude.
We have a name for those people in my country. Organ donors. There's no multitasking. This is the only true multitasking. There is no other multitasking in the world, my friends. But still, we rearrange these guilt systems, these monuments to our own failure. How many of us have a pile of books on our desk that's been there for a year, and occasionally we will reorganize them and move, I'm going to read The Ruby Way, I'll move that to the top, and Martin Fowler's new book, I'll put that on top. It's been there for a year, but I'll move it to the top. That'll cause me to be more likely to read that. And it's a stack of fail on your desk. It is a system that you have set up for yourself to make yourself feel bad. Why don't you set up success systems? Set up 3 things that you're going to do. A smaller stack, and then actually do it, as opposed to 12 books you're never going to read. You're not going to be able to stay simultaneously up on all of these things. Go and audit your news feeds, the things, the feeds, the inbox, the things that bring you information. There's too much. Find an aggregator, make it simpler. Go and take a look at the tools, the toolkit that you have, and audit that as well. Remember that you can't cut stuff if you don't measure it. I encourage people to use a tool called Rescue Time. Any Rescue Time people here? Rescue Time is wonderful. It runs in the background, looks at the window on your machine in the foreground, and then builds charts for you. You get to then decide, is the window in the foreground productive or not productive? You can decide if the tab you're reading is productive or not. And then it gives you a list. And I learned that I somehow end up on news websites at 4 o'clock. I learned about myself that somewhere around 4 in the afternoon, I stopped caring about my work. So now I know that about myself, right? What can I do with this information? Can I care? Can I maybe just decide that I'll shift my time and I'll work earlier, and 4 o'clock is when I stop caring? I learned that I'm not very productive on Mondays. Not really sure why. Remember I mentioned before that physical devices happen. Sometimes you might get physical tickets or a physical piece of paper that represents something. There's a really great system called 43 folders. And 43 folders literally is that, 43 manila folders labeled 1 to 31 for the days, and then 12 of them for the months, and you make a circular buffer. So if you get a ticket for a play, a physical thing, and you might lose it, you put it in March next year, and you have December, January, and you have this circular buffer, and then each day you move the day to the back. When a month happens, you move the month to the back, and the year moves through you, and the whole thing fits in that much space. Every physical piece of paper, every form, every receipt will become this much space in 43 folders in a little tiny box. Completely revolutionized how I thought about paper. And I don't think people give paper enough respect. That's my dad's iPad. It's actually called the Hipster PDA. It's got unlimited battery, retina display. It works great. It's a bunch of 3x5 cards printed out, and you can pick the pages that you want. You might be using OneNote or Workflowy or Trello or whatever. It doesn't matter. Go and look at your systems and ask yourself, are they effective? Are you this person? Do you open a lot of tabs? Remember how I don't want to give you the gift of my keystrokes? I don't want to give these websites the gift of my RAM. 500 megabytes so I can read The Verge? And then the CPU that's running in the background is like an ad in JavaScript? Opening a new tab, you mean read it later. Like that's the intent. But you just basically open it until the thing eventually crashes, and then it starts up again, and then you've got that existential dread as you go, restore 500 tabs? Like, did they really matter? My iPhone is starting to do that now. It actually has a thing where it's like, you've got 500 tabs open. We need to talk to you about this. What you really mean is read it later. That's a different gesture. Open a new tab might be reasonable if you're working on a project, you have 6 or 10 open. 40 or 50, you're just saying, I'm going to look at this later. So why don't you send it to a read it later system? Instapaper, Pocket. Every browser has a read it later now. Your phone has read it later built in. You can talk to these things with APIs. I use APIs to take all of the different things that you send me, all of the articles and notes and stuff, and then what I'll do is send them to myself in a compiled PDF so they show up on my Kindle. And then I can read them when I poop, which is multitasking. Go take a look at your workflows. Think about all the things you can use, whether it be IFTTT or Dropbox. But here is the rule. Now, this is a quote by Christopher Hawkins. He says, if it's not helping me make money, I remove that. I make it more generic. If it's not improving my life in some way, it is mental clutter, and I will throw it out. You decide what goes in that blank space. Get promoted, learn about software, have a better relationship with my partner. You decide what that is. And then I want you to take that list that we made earlier, and you say, if this thing is not X, making me money, getting me closer to my family, getting me more fit, helping me learn a language, whatever, throw it out. Say no. The hard part is filling in that blank. But you would be surprised how easy it is once you decide what your goal is, and you're like, oh yeah, I spent like 7 hours watching this show on Netflix, blah, blah. Did it help you make any money? Are you richer now? Well, but I enjoyed myself. Okay, then if it's not helping me to enjoy myself, well, that's not really my goal. Well, then figure your goal out. You see how we talked ourselves out of why binge watching Netflix is a bad idea? Now, I'm not saying don't watch TV. I love TV. So you know the Peloton ad everyone's talking about? I just went to the thrift store and I bought a treadmill, and I put an iPad on it, and I made a contract with myself that I can watch as much TV as I want as long as I'm on the treadmill. So if I want to watch another hour, I got to keep walking. That helped me decide whether or not I would watch this other show or watch the other show. And I got more fit, and I got to watch more shows, and I was doing feasible multitasking. So here's your homework, my friends. Take a picture of this. I want you to look at your sources, all the things that are coming into your life. Write them all down. Sort them. The sorting is the part. Sort the things in your life. Think about scheduling work sprints. Look at the Pomodoro system. It's free. You can read it up. None of these things cost money. Anything that could pop up and slow you down. You know how we used to use Skype to talk to people, and now it just like tells us about birthdays for people we don't really know very well? I'm like, oh, thanks, Skype. It popped up, and someone who I haven't called in 10 years' birthday is today. Thank you. That was a speed bump. You do not need to know when your email arrives. You do not need, there is literally nothing that my phone or computer can pop in my face that I would care about that much to keep me from staying in my flow. Think about effectiveness and efficiency in your personal toolbox. Thank you very much, and thank you for letting me close the day.